Then I will call this meeting of the Bloomington Environmental Commission to order on April 15th, 2021 at 6:02 p.m. We'll start with roll call to make sure there's a quorum, going alphabetically by last name. Sam Armstrong.
Present.
Matt Caldy.
Here.
Meredith Dickerson. Don Eckert.
Here.
Daniel Gonzalez. I am present. Mike Litwin. Dave Parker.
He's here.
He's here?
Mike's here.
Okay.
He's
Dave,
just muted.
there we go. Okay. Dave Parkhurst.
I'm here, yeah. Thanks to those who sent links.
Muted.
Scott Shackelford.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Yep, I'm here.
Thank you. And Dedamia Whitney. Okay, a quorum is met. We'll move on then in our agenda to introductions. We'll do introductions this month since we do have guest speakers. Just introduce ourselves to them. We'll go in reverse alphabetical order with Scott Shackelford going first.
Sure, thanks, Andrew. Hello, I'm Scott Shackelford. I'm a professor here at IU, and I chair the cybersecurity program for the campus, and I'm the executive director of the Ostrom Workshop.
Thank you. Dave Parkhurst.
Well, I retired from the environmental science part of SPIA 14 years ago. And I was on the Environmental Commission from 1973 for 14 years, and then was off for a while and got back on a few years ago. So enjoying it.
Thank you, Dave. Mike Litwin.
I am retired from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and I've been on the Environmental Commission for over 20 years.
Perfect. My name is Andrew Guther. I'm chair of the Bloomington Environmental Commission. I've been on the Environmental Commission since 2018. Before that, I was on the Monroe County Environmental Commission. I graduated from SPIA with my bachelor's in public affairs in 2018. And I actually was just accepted into SPIA's, well, now O'Neill School's Master of Environmental Sustainability program. So it looks like I'll be sticking around in Bloomington for at least another year or two. And I just love being involved in Bloomington and Bloomington's community. So that's why I'm here. Don Eckert, do you want to go next?
I'm Don Eckert. I'm a retired environmental geologist, and I'm completed, besides graduate school, of course, I completed a program in public administration from SPIA. So I'm on the commission now, this beginning of my third year.
Thank you, Don. Matt Caldy.
Matt Caldy, commissioner, 4 years.
Thank you. Nice and succinct. And Sam Armstrong.
Hey everybody, I'm Sam Armstrong. This is my second month here on the Environmental Commission. I am a part-time student at IU studying environmental and sustainability studies, and I have a good background in environmental restoration fieldwork.
Thank you, Sam. Seeing we're done with introductions, we'll move on then to approval of minutes. Did everyone have a chance to read the minutes from our March 15th meeting from last month? Were there any amendments or changes or edits to be offered? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from March 15th, 2021.
Second.
Moved.
So moved and seconded. Excellent. We'll go down through our list for a vote then. Sam Armstrong.
Yes.
Matt Caldy.
Yes.
Don Eckert.
Yes.
I vote yes. Mike Litwin.
Yes.
Dave Parkhurst.
Yes.
Scott Shackelford.
Yes.
Unanimous, it passes. Excellent. moving on in our agenda.
Looks like we've got a couple people that just showed up.
Oh, who are we missing then?
Daniel and Damien.
Daniel and Dedamia. Excellent. We'll get their votes in. I won't close it. I'll allow them to vote. And I'll mark that they are present now as well. All right. We are voting on approval of the minutes for March 15th, 2021. Dedamia and Daniel, did you have any changes to offer for those minutes?
I do not.
Excellent. Thank you, Daniel. Dedamia, did you have any edits to the minutes? Looks like Dedamia is having technical issues.
No, I'm here.
Oh, sorry. Did you have any changes to the minutes?
I'm sorry. No.
Okay. Well, then we will have you two vote on approval of the minutes. Daniel Gonzalez
Yes.
and Dedamia Whitney.
Yes.
Excellent. Still unanimous. Passes.
Did the meeting start at 6?
Yes. The meeting start at 6 p.m.
Well, I couldn't get on, so.
Okay. Well, that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
We just have gone through introductions and the call to order. If you wanted to introduce yourself to our two public speakers, you may do so now.
I'm Dedamia Whitney.
And I'm Daniel. I'm a first-year master's student at Indiana Bloomington.
Thank you both. Moving on to public comment. This section is 20 minutes total, 5 minutes per person limit. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak this evening? If you wish to speak this evening on a matter either on or off our agenda, you may raise your hand using the raise hand function, or you may send a message in chat and we will have you unmuted so that you may speak. And as usual, we will give it a few seconds before we move on, just to make sure that anyone who wishes to speak has their chance to be heard. Linda, I'm assuming that we're not seeing anyone?
I don't see anyone.
Okay.
I would like to add that the link on the website is the wrong link. So if anybody went to the website to get the link to join the meeting, that link was for last week's or last month's.
That is concerning. Okay. Thank you, Daniel, for that information. We'll make sure that it's fixed in future months. Must have just been a typographical error. Linda, is this being broadcast on Facebook so that there's a way for people to access it outside of going through the link?
Sorry, I just lost myself. I think so, but I'm not actually sure. I hit the recording button. I honestly don't know if it's on Facebook right now.
Okay. I'll check on that in a minute then and let you all know. But seeing that we have no public comment currently open, I will close public comment at this time. Since there are technical issues, if we do have a member of the public that wishes to give public comment, we will give them a spot to do so at the end of the meeting if there's no objection from the membership.
I'm trying to allow Ben's brother to record this, and maybe he can get it onto Facebook, because Ben wasn't available and his brother is recorded, and I am not sure how to let him in on this.
Yes, we usually have our SPIA intern, Ben, who works for the EC, handle all these technical questions.
Is it being recorded by cats?
Yes. Okay, let's see here. Oh. I don't know if Daniel can hear me or not. From down to, I'm sorry, everybody.
Oh, you're fine. We have a light agenda today. Just want to make sure that we're set up correctly before we proceed with the rest of the agenda, since we haven't done anything of major consequence yet. So just bear with us, everybody, as we make sure
Yes.
we're doing everything transparent and open.
Scott, what did you mean when you said the other waiting room?
Sorry,
Scott?
stepped away for a minute. Yeah, no. Does the link from the Environmental Commission site to the last week's Zoom room, is that active? Can you follow that, or is it just dead? I just wanted to make sure no one was waiting in the room from last week.
I don't think I can do, I'm not sure if I can do it. I don't know how.
Yeah, the last week, if you clicked on last week's or last month's link, it will just say, sorry, this meeting has ended. So there's no waiting room.
Okay,
Yeah,
great. Thanks,
I did
Daniel.
that too. But the link for this meeting, which was in the email that Linda sent, I waited on it for like 5 or 6 minutes before I got on. So whatever that means.
Okay. This is not currently streaming on Facebook on either the Planning and Transportation site or the EC site. Just so
Well,
everyone.
it's being recorded, so we'll just have to get it on there tomorrow.
Yep, I mean, that's the best we can work with. As I said, if any members of the public appear during the meeting and wish to see a public comment at the end of the meeting, we'll open a period for them to do so if there's no objection from the commissioners. So we'll move along. Thank you all for being so patient. We really appreciate it. Public comment is closed. We'll move on to our presentations for the evening. Our first presenter is Hugh Kramer. He's a member of the public who wants to talk to us about gas-powered leaf blowers. Hugh, if you want to just unmute yourself, you should be able to.
Yep. Am I good?
You should be. Yep, go ahead. Thank you for coming tonight.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for inviting us this evening. I don't have an environmental science degree. I'm a homeowner who has been driven to wit's end by the noise and pollution from gas-powered leaf blowers. I'll get right into it as I want to be sure that I can cover everything. I'll do a PowerPoint no-no and read these directly in case anyone calling in doesn't have visuals. Many of you may already know or be aware most of what I'm presenting. So as much as anything, it may be a dry run for city council meetings and otherwise. So I'll share my screen. Let's see, it says host disabled participant screen sharing. Are you able to turn that on?
Screen share, you mean?
Yes.
Can you do it now?
Yep.
Perfect.
I'm getting a lot of desktop one. Oh, I need to open my system preferences and allow Zoom. I'm gonna have to quit and come back in because I needed to add the permissions. I'll be right back.
Okay, we'll wait for you.
Okay.
Hugh, I was going to ask Andrew if Hugh minded trading places with me if he has to step off. I don't have a particularly long set of things to say, and seeing as we were adjacent in the agenda, up to you as chair, of course.
I have no problem with that. I would like to just not have you start until Hugh comes back, just so we don't catch him off guard.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Either way, in that case, we can, we can just wait for Hugh.
Okay, because I was under the impression he'd be back in just a minute.
Sure.
Well,
who's got a funny joke?
I was up in Valparaiso this weekend, visiting my family. My mom missed me, and pandemic and all, you know. And so I went home, and I noticed that Valpo and Bloomington share many similarities. I've always said Valpo is like Bloomington if IU was really small. And Valpo and Bloomington both share an obsession, it seems, at some point in their history, with both Callery and Bradford pears.
Oh, God.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Full parking lots just full of them. And as I'm sure all of you know, they stink to high heaven this time of year. And let's just say we didn't visit the parking lot of Target very often. Okay.
And they're
So
now,
see,
and everybody knows that those trees are now on the do not plant list, right?
yes.
Because they're invasive. Yeah. Okay.
And my mom put me in contact with one of her friends who has been complaining about them and wants to get the Valpo City Council to ban them. And my mom said, my son works with something like that. And she asked me, I said, yeah, we actually got them on the list this past couple years. So she put me in contact, and I'm going to give her some advice on how to convince their city council to ban those noxious trees. So I was under the impression that Hugh would be back in just one moment. It appears that Hugh may be restarting his computer or something similar. So if there's no objection to amending the agenda, we'll have Matt Flaherty, who's a city council at-large representative, give his presentation first. Seeing no objection, Matt, the floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you, Andrew. I think less so than Hugh, I don't have so much of a presentation. I just wanted to make sure I made time sometime relatively early this year to stop by the commission and introduce myself and talk a little bit about my interests and background and role on the council and the council's relationship to the Environmental Commission, and really answer any questions as well. As Andrew mentioned, I'm an at-large representative on the Bloomington Common Council. I'm in my second year of a 4-year term. I'm also a graduate of the O'Neill School, having graduated with a MSES MPA degree fairly recently, focusing on energy and climate issues. That education and my passion for climate action and resilience policy is really what led me to run for elected office. I think there's a lot in the context of the built environment in particular that cities and municipalities and county governments control that plays a really important part of the drastic climate action we need to take in this country and in this world. Hugh, I've gone ahead and started just a little bit describing the council and EC relationship, if that's okay with you. We just kind of swap positions.
Yeah. I think I was in the waiting room.
Sure. Just to let you know, I don't plan to take very long. So
okay, great.
I'm looking forward to your presentation immediately after.
Okay.
So yeah, the council, starting last year, started using a standing committee structure to handle at least some of its business and organize it and some of its business. This is pretty common among deliberative legislative bodies, certainly obviously at the federal level and state level, but most cities in Indiana also use a variety of kind of subject matter specific standing committees to handle legislation and to work on various things. We have about 8 or so right now, including one called the Climate Action and Resilience Committee. That was pulled out and separated from the Sustainable Development Committee, which does more of the, I would say, economic development side of sustainability. And I'm the chair of the Climate Action and Resilience Committee. Other members this year are Dave Rollo, a long-term council member from District 4, Ron Smith, a new council member from District 3, and Isabel Piedmont Smith, who's in District 5. The part of, I would say, the purpose and the benefit of having standing committees, there's a few things. Well, there's some things I won't get into, but there's some things that are particularly relevant to committees. One is instead of having an ad hoc group of council members who conduct interviews and liaise with commissions on kind of an ad hoc basis, we've got a group of people that are interested in and sort of specialize in a particular area who conduct interviews and liaise with the commissions. So as you probably all know, our city's many boards and commissions, some have state statute, enabled authority. Others are advisory in nature. The EC is one of those that's advisory in nature to both the mayor's office and the city council. And I've found in my time, and I think other council members agree, that we haven't always done the best job historically of cultivating that relationship between the city council and our advisory commissions. So that's something I hope we can continue to work on and build. And I'm optimistic that the standing committee structure can help us to do that, because it helps to designate kind of an appropriate pathway to do so. So Andrew and I have been working to set up sometime soon to meet. We haven't managed to do it yet, to just have a chat about all the things going on at the commission. We appreciated his annual update to the council a few weeks back. Linda and I were also able to get together, I think late last year or early this year, to talk a little bit about what's going on at the Environmental Commission, what's going on at the council, and areas where we overlap and opportunities for more collaboration. So I'll mention in particular, I know many council members very much appreciate the memos and from the EC and the oversight you all and input you all have in the context of developments, housing developments and otherwise in the city, things that in particular rezone petitions, planned unit developments, the kind of things that are not simply following city code as a permitted use, but rather things that are weighing some trade-offs in the context of our city's comprehensive plan and our adopted goals and policies. I think it's a really important voice to have at the table. And I know you all advocate at the plan commission level in that context, and then to the city council as well. So even when we don't have someone from the EC, speaking necessarily at a land use committee meeting or the city council meeting, we see those memos as part of the packet, and I know a lot of us very much appreciate that. So thank you for that work. I believe you all have some subgroups that do work in a variety of areas, including that. Let's see. I think we're kind of in this process of taking a look at boards and commissions citywide. There's a consulting group called Novak Consulting that has done some organizational assessments for the city of Bloomington over the last couple of years. That led to some changes, for instance, with the engineering department being pulled out separately from planning and transportation somewhat recently. Some other changes in organizational structure in the city. There was a very detailed and extensive report about our police force, for instance, and a variety of things related to that. And most recently, the Novak Consulting Group has been interviewing and working with a lot of different city employees, elected officials, commissioners, to look at how we do boards and commissions in the city, how we can improve on that. And that report is forthcoming, so there's not much I know yet about what they might say or recommend, or what their thoughts might be vis-a-vis best practices, or what else is happening in other cities. This is something they specialize in, kind of looking at, I think, municipal and local government organizational structure. But I'm also on the administration committee with the city council, and I got on that committee this year because I wanted to be part of that conversation, in particular, looking at boards and commissions and trying to make sure that we are identifying shortcomings and gaps, and really, finding a way to build meaningful relationships between the city council as the city's legislative body and our different boards and commissions. And I'm very open to ideas on that front, I would say, and happy to answer any questions too, or just kind of talk about that with folks. I think it's really great that we have so many talented and willing citizen participants in our local government, and I think it's important to find ways to really make sure that we are benefiting from that expertise that residents are willing to volunteer, and that we are providing value for you all as commissioners by making sure that we are taking your advice and input and valuing the work you're putting in. in a way that is rewarding and meaningful to you all as well. So that's kind of my goal, I would say, in the context of boards and commissions. It's easier in some sense with some than others because we sort of interact naturally with some more than others. The Commission on Sustainability, for instance, actually has a designated seat on the commission that is a council member seat. So I had served on BCOS previously as a resident, and now I'm this year I'm the council appointment to that body as well. So I actually attend all of those meetings and interact, but obviously not with Environmental Commission. But would absolutely be interested in finding ways as the chair of the Climate Action and Resilience Committee to build and further relationship with the EC. So that's kind of my main reason in wanting to come here and kind of introduce myself and meet you all. Everyone, please, on the commission, feel free to reach out to me directly anytime. I can't speak for other council members, but I think more connection with our commissioners would be a good thing. So, we don't have quite as much of a direct connection as the executive and city staff does, perhaps, because of course we have city staff liaisons for all the commissions, which are kind of on the other side of city government under the mayor. So you all see Linda every month, but not necessarily your council members. So please feel free to reach out at any time with thoughts, questions, concerns related to your work on the commission or really anything else. And I'd always be happy to get together and chat. We also welcome your input and comments on any topic related to your work here. At our regular sessions on the city council, we have open public comment at the beginning and end of each of those meetings. So I think that mostly covers it, at least what I wanted to talk about tonight, and just put a face to a name and kind of say hey to folks. But yeah, happy to answer any questions or take any feedback in relation to kind of what I just brought up or whatever else is on people's minds.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for Councilmember Matt Flaherty?
Well, I'd just like to say that Dave Rollo attended our meetings for several years, and that was very beneficial. I realize you guys are overwhelmed, but we'll be very happy to have your representation anytime you can do it.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I'll try to hop in now and then. We have a ton of night meetings, as you can imagine, and it gets exhausting at times. But yeah, every now and then I will try to hop on an environmental commission meeting and just review agendas. And I don't think I'm on your list necessarily, but maybe Linda can add me to the a list so I can just keep an eye on agendas and what's happening as well. So thanks for that.
I think that's a great idea. I'll jump in with mine. I batted around the idea of asking the city council to amend our founding ordinance to actually allow for a council member to sit on the commission. Some of you may not know, I actually ran for city council the same year that Matt did. He was obviously more successful than I. But one of the things that I ran on was I wanted the EC to have a seat by a council member. But then of course the city started doing the restructuring of boards and commissions. So I've held that off because I don't know necessarily what the future will hold for the EC and other commissions like it. But I do think it would be vastly beneficial for the EC to have a designated council liaison the same way that the Commission on Sustainability does. I think it would send a very good message relating to our cooperation as well as the city council's dedication to our work relating to development and green development and sustainability practices and building and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you share those sentiments in some way, shape, or form.
I agree too.
Oh, just a quick note. I meant to mention as well, we've the committee has interviewed for the one council vacancy we had for the Environmental Commission, and it takes a little bit because we interview for most positions and we kind of have to coordinate with candidates, but we've conducted that interview and made a recommendation which we'll pass on to the full council on Wednesday next week, and you should have a new appointee as of that. So sorry we couldn't get it in before this month's meeting, but soon.
Excellent, thanks.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, jokes for Councilmember Matt Flaherty?
I'll just mention in closing that, well, thanks for having me, but Hugh and I have connected in the past pre-pandemic about this particular issue. And when he reached back out, I recommended he talk to the Environmental Commission. And I think as you'll see in Hugh's presentation, we've got some momentum and some things that might help move us forward on this particular issue that he's bringing forward. And I guess that's another thing I could or should have highlighted in my brief overview of the council and commission relationship, which is that commissioners and commissions can absolutely have an active role in drafting and developing legislation. You don't necessarily see it all that often, but it is completely welcome. It's kind of an at your own initiative thing, which is I think why people don't always know, but we had a massive overhaul of our parking regulations, for instance, in 2018 that came largely from the Parking Commission and was championed by the chair of the commission at that time. And it was a pretty significant policy change, and it was developed by the commission in consultation with some, a council member and brought through and passed. So if there are legislative things on your all's minds at various times, whether it's, like the thing Andrew mentioned about, the seats on the commission, or just things related to environmental quality in Bloomington that you want to see done legislatively, that things that are in city code, please reach out about those. We can absolutely work on things together. And again, this next presentation from Hugh might be one of those examples. So I think that was the one other thing I wanted to mention.
Perfect. Well, I'll take the opportunity to say thank you, council member, for coming to our commission meeting this evening. In the time that I've been on the commission, you are the first council member to come speak to us, and that means a great deal. I know that we share many goals in line with the city environmentally, and I look forward to working with you in the future. I will say that I am excited at the idea of working with you legislatively. The Environmental Commission has focused largely on amending various plans, procedures, policies that go before the city council. So obviously you're familiar with our work on the UDO. Mm-hmm. We got a lot of good amendments put into the UDO. And the climate action plan, which we will be presented to you in the coming weeks, has amendments in it that were authored by the Environmental Commission as well. So we've been working behind the scenes in that way. But I imagine that our membership will be able to dream up some ideas that they would like to see enacted by the city council that we can work with you and your fellow council members on a one-on-one basis.
Great.
So we thank you for extending that invitation to us.
Yeah.
And we anticipate at some point taking it up.
Great, thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, council member. I'll make sure that council member Flaherty's email is sent out to the membership after this meeting to make sure that they have the opportunity to send you any questions, comments, concerns that they may have that they think up of after this meeting. Moving on in our agenda, we'll move on our amended agenda. We'll move on to our next public speaker, or our next public presenter, Hugh Kramer, a member of the public, speaking to us about gas-powered leaf blowers. Hugh, I hope you have everything working now.
I do. And
wonderful.
I will share my screen. Let's see, are we good here?
Looks good to me.
Okay.
Yes.
Gas-powered leaf blowers, air pollution and noise pollution. Gas-powered blowers are a major source of air pollution because the technology is so crude and old, the level of pollution is off the charts. An individual gas-powered leaf blower emits 500 times the level of hydrocarbons as a modern automobile. By the way, I can make all of the sources for this available. I don't have references in here, citations. I can make it all available if you're interested. These were all submitted to the city about 2 or 3 years ago. And so according to air quality officials, gas-powered leaf blowers are some of the biggest polluters in the country. By 2020, leaf blowers and other small gas engines will create more ozone pollution than all of the passenger cars combined. With a muzzle velocity of up to 250 miles per hour, blowers blow dust particles, including herbicides, pesticides, and other contaminants, up from the ground and into the air. This is especially troubling for asthmatics and allergy sufferers. They also kill insects and other organisms that are needed for healthy turf, thereby requiring more and more fertilizer. Edmunds, the automotive research company, found that emissions from 30 minutes of gas-powered blowing are the same as driving a Ford F-150 Raptor pickup truck from Texas to Alaska. That's available online. Given the thousands of hours that gas blowers are active in Bloomington, we would have to completely eliminate automobiles in the city rather than merely reducing them to equal the reductions from eliminating gas blowers. Almost all gas blowers use two-stroke engines. The two-stroke engine is vastly dirtier and less fuel efficient than automobiles because it sloshes together a mixture of gasoline and oil in the combustion chamber and then spews out as much as 1/3 of that fuel as an unburned aerosol, a major contributor to global warming. Regulators around the world are pushing older two-stroke engines toward extinction. Governments in Asia and elsewhere have been banning two-stroke engines, including the tuk-tuk, on anti-pollution grounds. Two-stroke engines have largely disappeared in America, yet they remain the propulsive force behind the 250-mile-per-hour winds coming out of most gas-powered leaf blowers. The following label is required on gas blowers sold in California. The engine exhaust from this product contains chemicals known to the state of California to cause cancer, birth defects, and other reproductive harm. With respect to benzene, a carcinogenic pollutant, one group found that each cubic meter of exhaust from an idling two-stroke engine contains 60,000 times the safe level of exposure. Because they are particularly bad in the spring and fall, residents are forced to leave their windows shut longer than they would otherwise because of the noise, exhaust fumes, and particulate matter. This means running air conditioning in the fall or heat in the spring for at least 6 weeks longer, thus a double hit to the environment. We do that. We would love to open our windows, but we can't. Perhaps most worrisome, the gas engines release high concentrations of microscopic ultrafine particles as recently confirmed in tests commissioned by Fair Warning. The basic idea is that the smaller the particle, the deeper it can be inhaled into the lungs and the more potential it has to then cause health problems such as lung cancer, heart disease, strokes, asthma, and other respiratory ailments. It's a quote from a university grounds worker who is thankful that his campus is phasing out gas-powered machines. The exhaust, he said, goes straight to your lungs. Another quote, he sees his workers facing the same hazards every day. You can feel it right away, he says. You have a headache right away with all that invisible smoke. Section 2 of 3, noise pollution and the quality of life. The physiological effects of noise pollution are real and well documented. Noise causes a loss of community and is both a sign and a cause of aggression and violence. And I can attest to the aggression and the violence when I've initially politely asked neighbors who were blowing on a Sunday morning or a Friday or Saturday evening or all of the above. I was met with hostility and even revenge, and that revenge was in the form of blowing more often, closer, and revving the engine because I dared to ask them not to use their leaf blowers at those times. In addition to environmental impact, studies show that gas blowers have a considerable negative impact on the quality of life, and this is really important for cities right now. Sound is the #1 complaint nationwide from neighbors, and leaf blowers are at the top of the list. The most powerful leaf blowers can create a stream of air exceeding 250 miles per hour with noise levels as high as an ear-piercing 112 decibels at close range. And as you probably know, decibel levels are logarithmic, so every 10-point increase is twice as loud. 70 decibels is twice as loud as 60, 80 decibels is twice as loud as 70, and so on. The noise from gas blowers is clearly audible from 1/4 of a mile away. Here we are. Here's one of our neighbors who blows hours at a time. Here's another, and here's another. I can clearly hear anything in this radius. This is a 1/4 mile radius. I can clearly hear if people are blowing. If I'm outside, I can clearly hear. Within this range, I can hear it if I'm inside. The 2-stroke leaf blowers are unique in emitting a low frequency sound that is not measured conventionally, but which travels long distance and penetrates building walls. Low frequency noise from gas blowers has great penetrating power. It goes through walls, cement barriers, and many kinds of hearing protection devices. I have noise canceling earbuds that are excellent. They block everything except gas blowers. By the way, I say gas blowers because they only blow leaves for 2 months. The rest of the year they blow grass and little debris off sidewalks. So leaf blower is a misnomer. One acoustic study found that in a densely settled neighborhood, a gas-powered blower rated at 75 decibels of noise can affect 15 times as many households as a battery-powered blower with the same 75 decibel rating at 50 feet. Leaf blowers are routinely used less than 50 feet from unconsenting pedestrians, and that unconsenting is a key word. Unconsenting pedestrians in neighboring homes that may be occupied by telecommuters, first responders, shift workers, retirees, children, the ill or disabled, and pets. Laws that assume everyone works during the day and sleeps at night are woefully outdated. That includes Bloomington's Quiet Nights Law. What about quiet days for these folks and others who are working at home, etc.? As Kenneth Mao writes in the autumn 1997 Right to Quiet newsletter, when harsh noise hits, instead of reaching out to greet the world with open ears, we shrink back into shells, or try to. In truth, ears can't shut, nor, like the eyes, turn away. Noise controls space like an occupying army. It travels through walls, enters homes, molests bodies, violates privacy, stops thought, and batters each of us into isolation. It's a very poetic way of describing what's happened to us, and that is we don't go out in our yard anymore. We have given up on trying to garden or to have nice dinners with friends on our deck because we never know. Bloomington has zero laws regulating noise, especially from these things. So they can go anytime they want. They can go Sunday morning at 6 a.m. They can go Saturday evening at 8 p.m. And they do in our neighborhood. And so we've given up on trying to have, a picnic outside because on numerous occasions we've been driven inside because they'll start up. We'll have friends over and sorry, we have to move everything inside. We've tried gardening. And once they start up, you not only don't know what time they're going to start or if they're going to start, but how long they're going to go. They might go for 10 minutes. They might go for 4 hours. Another quote from a landscaping company owner. Each time I see these crews, I think to myself, 10 years from now, they'll be on the path to premature deafness. Hearing protection is not very effective with gas blower noise. Section 3 of 3, regulating gas blowers. There are some headlines, a small handful of headlines from cities that have banned or restricted gas blowers. Ann Arbor bans 2-cycle leaf blowers and other equipment downtown. Encinitas, latest California city to ban gas blowers. Summertime silence, New Jersey town bans landscapers leaf blowers. New Illinois bill would make gas leaf blowers illegal. California considers statewide ban on gas-powered garden tools. Washington, D.C. enacts a phase-out of gas-powered leaf blowers. And the final one at the bottom is residents want board to go further with leaf blower laws. You can find several articles from papers nationwide where they passed a somewhat restrictive leaf blower law and got complaints from neighbors that they weren't strong enough. Dozens of cities in the US have restricted the use of or banned gas blowers. Hundreds of cities are currently considering gas-powered blower regulations, as well as some states, including Illinois and California. Other than a vocal minority similar to smoking bans, this has been very popular in other cities and is a winning piece of environmental and quality of life legislation. Now, young people, when you consider the smoking bans, young people find it hard to believe that, and probably some of the young people on this call would find it hard to believe that people could smoke in airplanes, and that they could smoke in restaurants. We take it for granted now, but it was a huge uphill struggle, as some of you recall, banning smoking because of the vocal minority. I'm just highlighting some of these dates. Ann Arbor banned 2-cycle leaf blowers in 2019, July 29th, 2019, almost 2 years ago. 2019 for Encinitas, California, 2017 for this New Jersey town. I don't know which one it is, but there are several. Battery and electric blowers. Battery and electric blowers are part of the solution. While not without their faults, they emit no dangerous polluting exhaust fumes and are about a 15th as loud, even for those rated at the same decibel levels as gas blowers. And I've pointed out the cubic feet per minute, 625 CFM and 690 CFM. That's extremely powerful. And that's about where the highest gas blowers were about 5 to 7 years ago. However, gas blowers now, some of the most popular backpack blowers are at 950 CFM, these are the ones that can dig down into the soil and lift up every single piece of debris or leaf. And what's happened is that these commercial blowers and otherwise have gotten used to that power, that absurd power, which they also use to blow grass off of sidewalks. And then this 690 CFM, which is more than enough for anything you need, doesn't seem powerful enough. So I submitted a proposed phase out schedule 3 years ago to the city. I've updated it. This was initially 2020, but gas powered blowers are allowed from November 1st. This is first year of the phase in. Gas powered blowers are allowed from November 1st to December 5th between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 10 to 2 on Saturday. They are not allowed from December 6th to October 31st. And the rationale, leaves do not begin accumulating in Bloomington until at least the end of October. However, some residents begin using gas blowers as soon as leaves begin to fall at the beginning of October. Some residents, several right around us, behind us, use gas blowers nearly every day in the fall so that no accumulation of leaves occurs. I've seen them blowing leaves as they land. This hobby is abuse and is one reason for the need for this regulation. One neighbor had a lawn crew this year blowing leaves on Christmas Eve, not this year, but the previous year, leaves on Christmas Eve until well after dark. About 7:30 p.m. they turned their lights on in the backyard so they could keep going. We couldn't hear a thing we have a modern home that has a lot of windows, and we couldn't hear ourselves think on Christmas Eve until about 7:30. That's because we don't have any laws. A significant percentage of the noise and air pollution from gas blowers is in the spring, summer, and fall when they're used to blow grass clippings, dust, and other small debris after mowing. This picture to the right, you'll see this every day, hundreds of times in the city in Bloomington, and that is using a 900 CFM 250 mile per hour, 112 decibel gas-powered blower, there's no plausible argument that they're needed to tidy up grass clippings after mowing. It's called mow and blow, and every lawn company does it. Many residents also use these monsters for this purpose. I have followed these folks getting decibel levels and taking videos of them blowing these little pieces of grass. That's one of the reasons why they need to be banned in the spring, summer, and early fall, because this is what they do with them. You will not see a lawn company coming in and cutting a lawn without spending another 15 minutes blowing little grass clippings. It's a major source of hydrocarbon and particulate pollution in summer in Bloomington, especially on high ozone days. Lawn companies typically do not comply with high ozone day warnings. They never do, frankly. Where I live, few residents do. Phase 2, gas-powered blowers cannot exceed decibel levels greater than 65 dB at the source, and the same additional dates of use as 2022 apply. 2024 gas-powered blowers are not allowed to be used in Bloomington city limits. That would be 7 years after Ann Arbor banned gas blowers, but better late than never. Let's see, I mentioned some of this. Questions?
Yes, I have a question. As someone who has done a decent amount of landscaping in the past, and relying on some sort of blowing machine, are you recommending that we replace gas-powered leaf blowers with electrical ones, or sort of a complete ban on electrical? And
electric is fine. I mean, that's what any of the cities that have banned gas blowers, but you still need to put some hour regulations on even the electric, because they can be annoying. You just can't hear them inside for the most part. They don't travel nearly as far, but yes, the battery powered blowers is what all of these cities and counties and municipalities that have banned blowers use. And they have, what they'll do is on, all those lawn companies have those trailers. They'll have a generator, not a generator, but it'll be hooked up to electricity somehow, and they'll have a suite of batteries. Instead of going to the gas pump, they just keep a set of batteries charged up. And I have a 3/4 of an acre lawn, and I use battery powered lawnmower, battery powered trimmer, and a battery powered blower. And I have 3 batteries, and for any one of those, by the time it takes about half an hour to charge the battery for about 45 minutes of use. So I've always got a battery ready when one runs out. I never have to pour gas in. I just take one out and put it in, and you could do the same thing. That's what they do in a lot of these municipalities in California, Illinois, and Michigan, and others.
I have a question, Hugh. And I want to preface my question with, I don't want you to take it as it being a negative question. The commissioners are familiar with my belly aching about the state of Indiana preempting municipalities on what they can and cannot do. And Illinois, California, Michigan, New Jersey are all very politically different than the state of Indiana. I was wondering if you knew anything about any possible preemption from the state, and if there is no preemption, has any other municipality, specifically to my mind comes Indianapolis, ban the use of these machines within their city limits?
Well, that's a great question, because it was when I started talking with the city about this 3 years ago, that was the first thing they mentioned as well, because they tried to get plastic bags banned, and the county, the state came down and said, no way. Same with annexation and other things probably. This has to be done skillfully, and it probably has to be done as a noise ordinance, not as an environmental. But if you creep in on it as a noise ordinance, then I think it'll be kind of like boiling a frog. If you phase it in as a noise ordinance, for instance, in the year, what do we have here? 2023, all gas blowers need to be less than 65, or any blower, any lawn equipment maybe needs to be less than 65, but it needs to be done kind of stealthily, because if you get knocked down on this, then nothing else in the environmental plan makes an awful lot of difference compared to this, because this is the elephant in the room. There's nothing that compares pollution-wise, as far as I know. Certainly not automobiles. They've become very efficient.
I have
two-stroke engines.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to cut you off.
That's fine.
Thank you for answering my question. I just would like to follow up with a quick comment that I agree that your perception regarding this would be best filed as a noise ordinance is probably in line with what the state of Indiana would think as well. My question is if you do it as a noise ordinance, and I'm going to ask you to unshare your screen.
Yeah, how do I do that? I was just looking for that.
I think if you go to your bottom bar, there should be like a bottom bar that says share screen. I think if you click that, it should turn it off.
Well, all I've got is this strip that has everybody's, oh, here we go. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So I would agree that it being a noise ordinance would probably not meet the same grisly death that a lot of things do in the state of Indiana preemption-wise. I would say that the problem with it being a noise ordinance is, for example, I don't know this, but what's the decibel reading on your average lawnmower? Would we be accidentally banning the use of lawnmowers between any time that isn't 9 to 5? And then my next question from that stemming that would be, how does banning them from 9 to 5 affect people with careers who can't afford a gardener to come do it in the middle of the day? How does that impact lawn care in Bloomington? These are just large.
That's a good point, because those, those industrial lawnmowers, the zero turning radius, those monsters that are right behind us and they go all the time, are going to be greater than 65 dB at the source. So that's a good point. I don't have an answer to that right now, but yeah, it's something to think about, something to prepare for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't want you to take my questions as me being against what you're proposing.
No. I think any preparation, because this has to be successful. If the we just need that political skill to get it done, because otherwise.
Yeah, I'm trying to think in the mindset of one of Councilmember Flaherty's colleagues, what questions they might be asking.
Okay. Sure, appreciate it. Yeah.
I do think that the environmental benefits are there, though. I do think that the types of engines that mix different types of fuels together generally are the worst. It's why I believe they're banned in motors on Monroe Lake. I don't think you're allowed to use engines that mix two different types of fuel together on that lake. So I think that we've already identified as a community that there is an environmental benefit. It's just a matter of how to work it in there And if you want to discuss that with me after the meeting at a separate time, I would extend you my email to reach out to me about that.
I'd love to. Yeah, thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Hugh?
Yes. Actually, I've got 3 comments. I have a Makita battery-powered blower. I never had a gas-powered one that I got from Black's, and I really like it. I hardly ever use it, but when I have reason to, I use it in my garden, for example. Second point is I've talked to at least 2 hearing experts who say that any sound that's persistent and loud enough to cover up normal conversation is damaging your hearing. And the third thing is, I don't know the exact wording, but I would move that we approve something like what is being presented here, as we would like to recommend it to the city to do that.
I'm happy to collaborate with you if you like. I've been looking into this for years, and
I also have a comment regarding another perspective regarding waste. I know that the blowing yard trimmings onto the street is incredibly deadly for motorcycles, and it actually is against Bloomington ordinances right now to blow your yard trimmings anyway, technically, based on the wording of ordinances. And so I was curious if there has been any like precedent for giving tickets to people that blow grass trimmings, particularly specifically in the manner of onto a street, which is by far the most obvious violation of our ordinance. Yeah.
Matt, are you able to answer that?
Sure. I'm prepping some veggies for dinner, so that's why I'm off screen. But I've been listening intently, and thanks, Daniel, for bringing that up, and thanks everybody for the comments. All insightful, I think. Kind of the short answer on civil non-criminal ordinances of the kind you mentioned, Daniel, is that they're difficult and to enforce and largely unenforced. In fact, I think, Hugh, you mentioned we do have a noise ordinance. I think blowing at certain times of day probably would violate it, but I think you've mentioned that the police, when you've called them, sort of are unresponsive.
We called on New Year's, on also the day after New Year's Eve, they went all day, but it's when it was really warm last year, the previous year.
So there are ordinances against these things.
December, and we called at 7 o'clock, called the police at 7 o'clock on Christmas Eve. And we were told very shortly that there's no regulation against leaf blowers, that they can, and she looked it up and she said, they can go from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. 365 days a year. I've heard that twice from the police, because what they're doing is they're reading the exemption for rubble collection. Of course, that means city employees. It doesn't mean individuals blowing their gas, but this is what the police are telling me that.
Sure.
So I've seriously considered buying the biggest, baddest leaf blower and going out at 5 o'clock in the morning every single morning and testing the Bloomington Police Department's rules, and at 10:30 at night.
Yeah, there may be some misapplication of existing ordinances then, as well as a sort of non-enforcement of some, including the one you mentioned, Daniel. Most of the time, it is the police that are enforcing those things, and there seems to. This is just my impression, just based on talking to a lot of constituents about a lot of issues. These sort of lower level, like civil type infractions, are sort of unenforced or certainly under-enforced by police, and it sort of speaks to perhaps a need for a better mechanism or a group of people to sort of enforce civil ordinances that actually where it's problematic when they're not enforced. It's something I need to learn more about, frankly. There have been examples of other violations of ordinances in relation to housing, for instance, that, enforcement happens eventually, but it's a much longer process. It's not like an immediate ticketing kind of situation. It's a, weeks or months process of notifying the person of violation and having a chance for appeal and all these type of things. So I'm not sure. I think there's kind of some gaps basically, and it's something we can probably continue to work on. The BPD has what we're termed neighborhood resource officers, and I think they're working on restructuring or rebranding that program to some extent to look at civil issues more. And I wonder if there's potential there for having some more dedicated folks to address civil issues like this. But yeah, obviously, if we're going to have an ordinance, it's got to have teeth. The other thing I'll mention while I'm unmuted here is that I had sent to Hugh, and maybe you all have seen this, the climate action plan, which council will consider on Wednesday this coming week. Sorry, my dog is losing his little mind. Has a strategy related to reducing off-road and lawn equipment annual emissions substantially. There's a number of sub-strategies or actions called out in that plan that kind of look at a phase-out program or ordinance, as well as an incentive program to convert lawn equipment of all kinds to electric. And I think that speaks to maybe the political nuance of the situation as well, and really some equity concerns that Andrew brought up in relation to how businesses operate and how people get by and all the rest, which is that if we can work with Duke Energy or manufacturers on rebate programs as well, that will help make it minimal cost for folks to convert during a phase out period from two-stroke engine blowers and other equipment to electric. I think that's potentially a productive way to go that could help get more buy-in from folks. But so I just wanted to call out the climate action plan. It's page 28 of the final version of the plan that has really a lot of detail about this and kind of calls for action. So I think there's more support now as well in terms of the city plans to back this push. So Hugh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And one thing to mention regarding the potential rebates and getting cooperation is that the industry, though they won't say it publicly, would love for everybody to switch over to battery blowers. Why not? You're going to sell that. If the nation switched over to the battery blowers, it would be the best 5 years that industry ever had. So plus they have, instead of then buying gas from gas stations, they would buy the batteries from the manufacturers. So you're selling a razor blade and the razors. So they would love to see it, but they're not going to say it publicly and offend their current user base. I do have a question, and I know I asked you a little bit about it earlier on the strategic plan. When I looked at it, there were seemingly hundreds of those line items. And this seemed a little buried in there. And I know you didn't have anything to do with putting that together, I don't think, but it's sort of an afterthought. And it was phase 2. And I'm just wondering, you wouldn't know, but what phase 2 even means, because this is a 2030 plan, this strategic plan. And if we bring it in, is it a wave document where they say, look at all the things, we're thinking about here? Or is it truly an action plan? And if it's an action plan, at what point do these 4 items on this begin? And like, what's the timeline for implementation? And I know you don't have an answer to that, but some things are more important, and this one just seemed like an afterthought in there. It was where it's really should be the primary effort.
I can very briefly answer that if you like, Andrew, or we can move on to. I know this is your meeting to run, so.
No, you can answer it. Yep.
Yeah, just briefly, Hugh. I think it's a really comprehensive climate action plan that touches on a lot of different sectors. Mainly, I would say it's incumbent on the commissions and on council members and on residents to make sure we implement it. We've got a kind of a history of making a lot of plans that maybe get partial follow through. So for my part, this is another benefit of committees, the council using committees, frankly, because it designates whose job it is to do things. I see this as the central role of the Climate Action Resilience Committee is to implement all the legislative pieces of the climate action plan in conjunction with our boards and commissions and in conjunction with the administration. So that's our responsibility, to implement this plan legislatively. A lot of other things are going to be more on the executive side, and replacing city fleet type of stuff. But yeah, you could email Lauren Travis to ask for some more details about the particular quantification of potential emissions reduction and why this is prioritized or structured the way it is. But I think it's on us to collectively to make sure that we follow up on these things. So I'm glad we've got this conversation going.
So you need squeaky wheels.
Well, hopefully not too squeaky of wheels. Hopefully we just do our jobs and implement the plan. That's my intent. But
I should mention, you've been such a great help. Dave Rollo worked with us on it for a couple of years. He's 100% behind it. I should mention that the mayor is 100% behind it. He said, if the city council passes this, I will sign it.
I'll add a small caveat to that, which is that we have all sorts of legislation that originates from the administration. So if the mayor was really, really gung-ho, he and his staff, who are full-time, could develop an ordinance and bring it to us in a month or two, I'm sure.
Really?
It's fine that he's, deferring.
It seems like it has been getting passed back and forth. It's up to the council. It's up to the mayor's office.
But that's okay. It's good to know that he will sign it if we pass something.
Cool.
So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to jump in with a quick couple comments, and then I'll go to a call for final comment from Commissioner.
Hey, two people have had their hands raised for quite a while.
I'm
It's
sorry,
their
I don't
turn.
see any raised hands at all. Who are we missing? Want to make sure everyone has a chance. I don't see any hands, but
Me and Matt Caldy.
Sam,
The hands are raised on their pictures.
oh, okay. Matt Caldy, how about you go first? Since you
Sam's been waiting longer. Go ahead, Sam.
okay.
Thank you, Matt. Hugh, I also wanted to add that in my first comment, I do agree with your sentiment, especially having used 2-cycle engines. They feel awful breathing it after just a few minutes. But what I do want to say is, hopefully electric blowers will become more affordable, like the prices will become more competitive soon. And maybe this could be something that is made effective through, perhaps Bloomington could incentivize work crews to become all electric by maybe certifying a crew as all electric or something.
They're actually less expensive. You can buy a commercial electric blower at 650 CFM and an additional battery for the price of one of the 950 CFM gas blowers. 300 versus about 500.
It's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, the battery technology is really coming down, and this is going to be increasing every year.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yes, so I agree with everything that's been said about how it is a priority. I unfortunately didn't learn about the horrors of these 2-stroke engines until after about 2 years of being on a crew that used them, and can confirm everything everyone said about the hearing and the breathing and just all the particulate being blown around. And I know that there are specific applications where I use them where you really do need all that power. You're blowing around debris inside the stadium. It's what you do before you pressure wash when you're cleaning stadiums, to get the debris out first so you don't shoot them around with water afterwards. But still, I think there are tons of applications where you don't need that much power, and it should definitely be phased out where possible, which is why when we were reviewing the draft climate action plan, I tried to push for stronger language on the issue of the gas-powered blowers. They said maybe swap them out at time of replacement, like at the end of their life. And I was suggesting that at least the city could lead by example, even though it's expensive, and just replace them right away, like you're the city. And then you can encourage big employers like Indiana University or some of these big lawn crews to follow suit when they're able, or incentivize it as has been mentioned. But I noticed when I went to page 28, as was mentioned, that they unfortunately did not adopt that stronger language. So it still seems like an at your leisure type of reform, which I find a little bit disappointing, but fingers crossed here.
Yeah, I speaking of Indiana University, I submitted all of this same documentation, including articles, and both from the EPA and scientific papers, as well as all of these articles from the popular press nationwide, plus the summary that I just kind of went through to Indiana University top levels. The provost's office was asking for it. My wife works for the provost's office, so they asked me to submit. She mentioned that I was working on this, and they asked me to submit that, and it basically all goes up to one person, Tom Morrison, who makes the final decision. So we'll see.
Thank you, Matt and Sam. Are there any other? Don, I see your hand.
Real quickly, since I joined the Environmental Commission, the first person I talked to outside of to get input was Vic Kelson, and he explained to me his plan adopted storm drain. So I started doing that basically as soon as I got on the Environmental Commission, checking the Sussex and Queensway storm drains. Now, in the summer growing season, the material that I frequently remove from the drains consists largely of grass clippings. So yes, it is a real issue pretty much, not just in the fall when things end up in the street, but I do not have any. To me, my lawn clippings stay on the grass.
I've seen lawn crews blowing the grass after, as if they're blowing leaves, going through the entire grass to clean up any grass clippings that would have remained in the grass. And for one thing, that's insane, because these provide the nitrogen to keep the grass healthy. So you have to keep putting fertilizer on it. And they're blowing it into they make a half-hearted attempt to clean it up because they know they're supposed to, but they don't. And when you blow the leaves out, and this has another component to it, but this year, as I mentioned, people around here start blowing leaves into the drains at the beginning of October, and as I mentioned, as the leaves fall, literally. And so what happens, they start developing these large piles weeks before the city picks it up. And what happens when we have the winds that we did this fall, they all blow back up onto the yards, and then they have to blow them right back out into the street. And we saw that happen twice to this large property behind us on Woods Crest, the renewing the pile in the street.
Excellent. Anyone else have, before I jump in with my quick comment, I'll open the floor to anyone else who hasn't spoken yet if they want to speak or ask you a question or comment. Seeing no hands raised, I just wanted to first concur with Councilmember Flaherty. When I served on the Bloomington Board of Housing Quality Appeals, we would notice ordinance violations would come up month after month after month. And the reason we were told by city staff that they kept coming up was that enforcement was next to impossible, because with all the violations with housing, for example, within the city limits, there's only a handful of city staff designated to handle those ordinance violations. So it's next to impossible to catch everything, and that's why things get left for months and months, or in some cases dropped entirely. So I would agree that part of the crucial question involving any ordinance, I think, that imposes a non-criminal fine or penalty is that you look at not only at how does this affect people equity-wise, but you also look at how will it be enforced, by whom, when, under what circumstances, what the penalties will be. And I think those are all important questions to ask as we, or as you go ahead and formulate these types of ordinances. My second comment is that I would not feel comfortable with the Environmental Commission endorsing this as a noise ordinance, because I don't feel that this noise ordinance is within the purview of the EC. That's just my opinion. If my fellow commissioners feel differently, I'm not going to stop them from holding a vote. What I would say is that if you wanted to go from an environmental perspective and you wanted the EC to endorse essentially what you're asking them to, in large part, would be to ask the EC to endorse a change to code that would prohibit the use of two-stroke engines. I think that's been done at Lake Monroe, as I've said, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, well, that's a precedent. And obviously it wasn't the state legislature didn't come down on that, right?
Not to my knowledge. So that's why I'm saying from an environmental perspective, I could totally see the EC endorsing banning those specific types of engines because it's specific enough and it's within environmental scope enough that I can justify it myself voting for it as an individual member of the commission. Now, as I said before, if they want to move forward with it as a noise ordinance, I won't stop my fellow commissioners. I don't have that power or authority. But I would vote no in that case. But if you wanted me to vote yes, framing it as a two-stroke engine ban instead of a noise ordinance change for us would be best. You can then move forward to the city council as a noise ordinance and say, and by the way, the EC supports this because it also goes along with their policy of wanting to ban two-stroke engines. I think that would be a great way to try and diversify the opinions that you have going forward and the opinions you have supporting you as you move forward with this in front of council.
What committee, is there a similar committee that would deal with things like noise pollution?
I would say the Commission on Sustainability, part of their purview is handling things that traditionally are outside of the Environmental Commission's purview. So we do things like development, scientific, environmental research, that sort of thing. Whereas you'll notice that the Commission on Sustainability often will do things involving, for example, they had a letter about homelessness that they issued to the city. They've been working on issues relating to sustainable development economically. So I think that might fall within their purview more, as well as I would talk to people at hand, housing neighborhood development, because they may be able to weigh in more from a city staff perspective about how they go about with noise ordinance violations and that sort of thing, because they probably receive the brunt of the complaints involving that, besides the police department, who you haven't had much luck with. Okay.
Andrew, I'm pretty sure that the noise ordinance is a police issue. It's under their purview.
Okay, maybe I shouldn't have said hand. I'm sorry. I was thinking the Board of Public Works, because the Board of Public Works handles the appeals for noise violations. So whichever city staff department handles, well, Public Works, obviously. I would think that Public Works might be, not hand, excuse me, might be the best path forward. Because if you're not having luck with the police, I would go to the people who have the next step in the enforcement, which would be the people who handle appeals, which would be the Board of Public Works. Sorry about that, Lynn. Thank you for catching me on that.
And Dave, I think you had a comment.
Okay.
Well, I put it in the chat, but I said noise is part of my environment. I can't imagine why it isn't in Andrew's.
I'll take that criticism. I don't view everything within my environment as impacting the environment itself. So within my environment, for example, within my realm of being, there's plenty of things that I do within my own apartment that don't impact the environment directly. And I don't think me making noise by watching TV, for example, is an environmental concern. It may impact other people's environment, but we're charged with handling Bloomington's natural and built environments and how they impact one another, not necessarily how people impact one another. That's just my perspective. And as I said before, if the commission disagrees with me, they're more than welcome to move forward as they see fit. Don, you have a question?
I just quickly want to state that I consider environmental health within our purvey. And my understanding of these types of engines is clearly environmental health. And I also would include just having a set of hearings at just under $4,000 for the two of them. That's significant for environmental health. So part of our ball game.
Linda?
I have a question. What other kind of tools use these two-stroke engines? I mean, that chainsaws wouldn't fall into that category, would they?
Yes. I have one chainsaw that does that and another that's battery, and I use the battery one as much as I can. But chainsaws are two-cycle. Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of soil diggers. Tillers, yeah.
Tillers?
All kinds of things.
I believe motorcycles, many of them use two-stroke engines.
Not anymore.
Not the newer ones?
No, I don't think they've been banned in even mopeds for many years. And
Outboard motors used to be two-cycle. They aren't anymore.
Maybe I just know antique riders only.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think if we would like to move forward, if you want to move forward with the environment, if you've got enough of our perspectives, I think, Hugh, that if you want to move forward with drafting something that you would like the EC to endorse or, send to city council with our signature, I would recommend that you start drafting that. I would be willing to help with you from my perspective. Any of the other commissioners are more than welcome to jump in as well, I would say. And then we can go from there. And then we can put you on the agenda for either our next meeting or the meeting after. You would come in and just, present to us what you've written. And then we can look at it and move from there with our voting.
Sounds great. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Hugh, for coming and speaking with us. Again, that was Hugh Kramer. We really appreciate you coming in. We love when involved citizens come in and speak to us. It doesn't happen very often or often enough, then we really appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on from our public presentations onto the rest of our agenda, we'll go on to our reports from our various boards and commissions. Do we have a report from Tree Commission today?
This is one of those funny months where the first day of the month was Thursday. So the third Thursday comes before the third Wednesday, and the Tree Commission is going to meet next week.
Okay, perfect. Moving on to the Monroe County Environmental Commission. So I told Linda before this meeting, I've actually been sick with MRSA for quite a while now. No idea where I got it or how, but I'm on enough antibiotics to cure elephant of whatever it has. So I have been very unwell, in and out of doctor's appointments, I was unable to go to the Monroe County Environmental Commission this month. I do have their agenda in front of me, if I can just pull that up real fast. They were working on ERI, which we have done before, with the Environmental Resilience Institute for IU. They were getting a presentation from them. And then pulling it up right now. That's the wrong email. Just bear with me for 1 second. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Their main agenda item was the ERI. Here it is. There we go. Monroe County Environmental Commission. Yeah, and they were discussing the climate action plan, similar to how we were. They were looking at it and going through and seeing if they had any comments or concerns. And that's about it for the Monroe County Environmental Commission. Do you have any questions for me on that? Again, sorry I couldn't make it this month. I won't make a habit of getting MRSA in the future. Seeing none, we'll move on to our next, which is the Bloomington Commission on Sustainability. Don, do you have a report from them this month? Don, you're muted if you're talking.
Lauren basically reviewed over the status of the draft or final draft of the emission proposal or plan. Just went over some of the things again. There was a question about one of the how they came up with the mileage, and it appears that the only metric that they can come up with it is from the Department of Transportation. I thought relatively it was something I wasn't aware of where they got it from either. Representative of Commissioner Flaherty, City Council member, basically went over his made significant comments. Trying to get through this because we're glancing up at the clock. It's already past 7:30. They elected before I get to elected officers, there was also a very good discussion about the Citizens Climate Lobby wanting them to write an endorsement of the legislation to Congressman Trey Hollingsworth and both the state senator or U.S. senators, which got into a significant, to me, I thought was impressed by the discussion. Does the carbon taxes really gonna work? Social justice, and to me, I basically these are many of the same concerns that I have, and so they basically agreed not to support it, which I thought was a good move. Then they broke down into electing their officers, and which was pretty much the rest of the meeting. So that's my summation of what they did this or Tuesday. I had planned on making a statement, and during the public comment period, but I didn't have my wife's former tablet charged fully, and it wouldn't connect to the meeting with anything other than audio.
Okay. So, any questions for Don for the Bloomington Commission on Sustainability report?
That's.
Don, I had a question. Was the newly elected chair of the Bloomington Commission on Sustainability, was that Nayla Routsong? Do you remember?
I didn't write down their name in the new chairperson.
Okay.
I assume Linda, I had meant to ask Linda to send that information, and I forgot to send her the email to ask that because one of the commissioners asked for a current list of who everybody is on the commission. So I thought that would be something that would be beneficial for us as well, to know who's on their committees, et cetera, and their officers.
Did the Bloomington Commission on Sustainability ask you for a list of people who serve on our commission, or was it?
No.
Okay.
No, I could not communicate with them during the meeting.
No problem at all. Any other questions?
I was just ended up just on my PC.
Okay. Seeing no further questions for Don, thank you, Don, for that report. We'll move on to ERAC. Do we have an ERAC report this month?
Yeah, we met last night. I'm usually not very good at taking notes, but this time I took 2 full pages, and I don't know if you want me to go through them given the time, but I'd be happy to do that. So,
I can give us the highlights.
Well, I'm not sure how to do that.
Okay.
What I might do is scan them in and send them to you. And if anybody has questions, you'd be welcome to ask me. Maybe I'll do that.
Okay. I would say that let's send it out via email and let everyone else read, and then we can ask questions via email.
But let me just go through what the agenda was. We looked at the Duke Power Line Trail that'll go from Rogers Street to Weimer Road. We talked about the new Rogers Family Park design that will be where the place is now called Goat Farm. There'll be a prescribed burn at Griffey Lake, probably take place in the fall. It'll be uphill from the parking lot, and the idea is to encourage oak and hickory forests. We talked about various educational things that are going on. Algal blooms in the pond at Meadowwood, and that stream from that goes to Griffey, so there are algal blooms there too. Talked about Cascades Trail and stream stabilization that's going on in the Cascades Park. Talked about the Griffey Loop Trail and the fishing pier there. And then I sent you some things by email last night about this Experience Reality. That's a web company that Jeff Eman, who's one of our members, is working for that company. And I looked at it, I guess this morning, maybe last night, and they have several tours of Bloomington's food, various tours that the university has set up as well. And then there is this app that you can get for your phone called Outer Spatial, and that has information about all the city's parks, and you can get that on your phone, your iPad or whatever, and that's pretty interesting. So I'll stop there.
Sorry, my cats were fighting. I had to step away for a second. Excellent. Thank you, Dave. Do we have any questions for Dave on the ERAC report? Seeing none, we'll move along to the Metropolitan Planning Organization Citizens Advisory Committee. I was unable to attend this meeting in person. Again, my apologies. I won't make a habit of it. MPO CAC, the Citizens Advisory Committee, their agenda involved the 2022 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program, call for projects. So the staff was explaining how they're calling for projects to be submitted for the MPO to consider between 2022 and 2026. They also discussed the American Rescue Plan. Bloomington and Monroe County will be receiving total combined, I believe it's $50 million from the American Rescue Plan. And they were discussing what they were getting, how they'll get it, and then possible ideas for spending it. I would love to see a lot of capital improvement investment in public transit, but that's just me. And then old business, they were discussing the final draft of their unified planning work program, including the budget constraints, the work elements of it, and the emphasis areas they want to focus on going forward into 2022. And then they also have a survey that I'm going to send all of you, encourage you all to fill out ASAP. It's the Coordinated Human Services Public Transportation Plan Survey. They ask questions like, what forms of transportation do you use? Do you ever use any public transit or dial-a-ride services, such as those offered by rural transit here in Monroe County? And they ask what changes you want to see in your local transportation plan. Do you have difficulty getting transportation to the following types of care, et cetera, et cetera. So it's only 11 questions. They're mostly multiple choice. So I'll email that out to you all after the meeting. I encourage you all as members of the Environmental Commission to fill it out. Public transit is greatly linked to the environmental health of communities. And I think it's important that we as commissioners make sure our input is heard alongside that of the general public. So I'll send out that email as well. It's available in both English and Spanish. I will send you both links shortly after tonight's meeting. Do you have any questions for me on the Metropolitan Planning Organization Citizens Advisory Committee report? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next report, which is Friends of Lake Monroe. Do we have a Friends of Lake Monroe report this month?
They have not met since the last Environmental Commission meeting. They did have their spring blitz. I wasn't able to participate this time. Maybe Donald did. But they've gone through all the little streams that ultimately flow into bigger streams and then into Lake Monroe. And they look at things like bacteria and phosphorus and various other pollutants. And so the data will be pretty interesting when that all gets put together. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave on the Friends of Lake Monroe report? Seeing none, we'll move on to MC Iris. Does MC Iris have a report this month? I believe that's Dawn. And you're muted, Dawn, if you're trying to speak to us.
Linda, do you have any comments? Linda?
Yeah, there is, I hadn't given this a thought yet, but they've got several projects going on. They're doing some planting and several invasive removals. But the one thing that is definitely worthy of mentioning right now is the Earth Day event that will be held next week at Southeast Park. And all of you are invited and encouraged to come. You can sign up via their website because it is sign up only because they're limiting the number of people because of COVID. And I think for right now, that's all I've got for it.
I'd like to add on to the specifics of what's going on at Southeast Park. Today was the third day of the, we were planting with the park staff. And again, we had quite a good crew of volunteers each of the 3 days. I'm not 100% sure if John Bierman said that they were going to hope to plant around 850 shrubs and trees. Again, very diverse group of multiple different genera of native plants. And so we got a lot of stuff in the ground, and over these past 3 days, kind of a question that's on my mind is, should members of the city council be asked if they might stop by? And also today, it received channel or WFIU sent a reporter and camera person to document what we were doing, and they also may, if their editor approves, be there for the Earth Day event. And sort of, even though it is focused on, in essence, Sycamore Knolls, the neighbors around Sycamore Knolls, the hope is to get that a number of people do attend, or just to see what's going on, since there's going to be such a variety of different city and county and volunteer organizations there. Could be a very good event for us to, to observe and participate in.
Agreed.
That's all I have to say.
Does anyone have any questions for the MC Irish report for either Don or Linda? Seeing none, I encourage everyone to go to that event for Earth Day. It would be a great way to get involved with a great organization in our community, and let them know that the Environmental Commission is involved as well. Moving on then in our agenda from our reports, we're moving on to our working groups. This is B cycle. Before we dive into, well, we're not going to really dive into individual working groups today. I want to discuss working groups a little bit as of a more overarching theme briefly. So outreach currently, our members are Dedamia, who has volunteered to work on Eco Heroes, Don, Daniel, Matt, Sam, and myself. Biodiversity working group has Dave, Sam, Don, and myself. And ECPC, which is the Environmental Commission Planning Committee, which handles our development work, is Mike, Dave, myself, Dedamia, and Matt.
I'm also on biodiversity.
You're also on biodiversity? Glad you spoke up. Thank you. Making sure my list is complete. Did I miss anybody else whose name I didn't read on any of those? Okay. So if your name is not listed on any of these working groups, I would like to highly encourage you to sign up for at least one. And if I had to pick one for you to sign up for right now, if anyone needs an assignment, it would be outreach. As we've discussed in previous meetings, this is a big year for the EC. It's our 50th year anniversary. We would like to celebrate it in a decently big way later this fall. Hopefully in person, maybe virtual, depending on COVID. Linda, Ben, and myself can't do all the lifting on that event. And when I say myself, it's only because the chair traditionally will do things like speak at those events. But Linda and Ben do the brunt of setup, tear down, preparation, planning, reaching out to vendors, reaching out to the community. They can't do it all. They need our help with it. And for our 50th anniversary, I would like to think that we all would want to reach out and help them with it. So I encourage you all, and I ask you deeply from the bottom of my heart, to sign up for at least one working group for this year. And then we will press forward with those working groups. I would like for this month, before our next meeting, each working group to meet once. And what I want each working group to do, I'll be in charge of sending out emails to arrange these meetings, don't worry. But once we pick a date and time for that meeting, at those meetings, I want each working group to assign a chair, someone to take point, make sure things are being run correctly within those meetings. I also want them to discuss long-term plans for that working group. For outreach, for example, it's our 50th anniversary. I want you to start brainstorming ideas of what we want to do for that. Ben's already sent out a list of ideas that he's thought up of. I want you to start looking at those ideas, comparing them, and narrowing it down to a few ideas that you think we can implement in time for that event. For biodiversity, I want you to pick it up, elect a chair, and then start going over Ben's habitat connectivity plan. Make edits if necessary, talk to him about what his plans and goals are for it, and work on getting it finalized so that we can pass it as a commission and have it enacted and going in time for our 50th anniversary. And for ECPC, that's the only one I don't have to rag on you about. ECPC is usually 5 members. We have 5 members. It's being run almost exclusively by Linda. They do their work, they make their memos, they vote them out, they send them to you guys. We present every month on that. So ECPC is really a model for what the other working groups need to be. We need people to really we need to buckle down, guys. We need to make sure that we have these meetings locked down, that we get these plans set in place, and that we get off on the right foot with them. Otherwise, we're going to be struggling for the rest of the year trying to get through this mire of getting people involved and getting things done. And I'd really prefer we just hit a grand slam right out the gate, and we work on making sure that we are set up for success for this upcoming year. Does anyone have any other input? Linda, do you have any input you want to give for working groups?
I completely agree with all of it. But I did want to mention that I was able to get these oak trees. And so I think the outreach working group needs to figure out a way to distribute these to the public. I just saw an ad in the paper for free trees. So I went and they only had 2 bundles left. So I got the white oak bundle. They look beautiful. They're 2-year-old trees, so they're much taller than, you know, the 1-year-olds that I'm used to seeing from the state nursery. And we need to figure out a way to distribute those to the public this spring. That can't wait till fall.
Okay, that's another thing outreach has to do. And I really appreciate you, Linda, with keeping an eye out on that sort of thing.
Well, there wasn't any time, you know, they were going fast. He said he only had a couple bundles left. So I said, I'll be there. I hopped in my car and drove down to Springville, an hour away, to get them. And It was just kind of a spur of the moment thing that I thought, man, the EC can use these somehow. Didn't know how, but I had the chance, so I had to go get them. Sam?
Linda, did you mention if these are containerized or bare root white oaks?
I did not. Thank you for asking. They're bare root.
Okay, thank you.
Didamia?
Is the market, the farmer's market on now?
It is. This Saturday will be the first one. And I thought of them, but I think that there was a rule that they weren't going to have any of the tables, you know, for the information tables. So I'm not sure if we'd be able to be there, but maybe we could be close by. It's something I just haven't had time to look into this week.
You could ask it.
Well,
I'm sorry, Didamia.
It would put us close to a lot of people who probably would be interested in the trees. And I don't know how else we would get in touch with that same group of people.
Right. I agree.
If they're not allowing individual tabling, Linda, maybe they would allow us to stand by the front check-in area. I assume they're still doing a check-in area as they let people in one entrance due to COVID. If we could set up near that one area, we'd catch literally everyone who goes into the farmer's market.
Right. I'll just have to ask because I don't know the details of their temporary rules.
Yeah.
Sam, did you have something? Did I see your hand?
I was just going to mention, I know, and I'm sure you also know, there's a variety of alternative markets throughout Bloomington also, and I don't know if we're allowed to set up at events like that, but the Woolery Mill Farmers Market, I don't know if they have any restrictions like the city one might, and a decent amount of people go to that weekly. But again, I know it'd be nice to attend the city farmers market.
Right. Yeah, I don't know much about that one.
Is Switchyard Park going to continue its market?
Who?
You mentioned Switchyard Park, David?
Yeah.
Oh, no, the Switchyard Park, the way I understand it, was where the winter market was being held. And this Saturday is the first week for the regular farmers market at City Hall.
Okay. So Switchyard's going to close down or already has.
Yes, it's like the same arrangement that they had when I was at Harmony School.
Okay.
So do you want to check on the market and then get in touch with the people on the outreach committee and we'll figure out what to do next?
Yes, I suppose so.
Yes, and Sam.
And in the meantime, I'm pulling some out for the EC members that want one or more.
Sam and Linda, I know I'm Facebook friends with a gentleman who runs the Woolery Mill Farmers Market.
Jeff Meese.
I'll reach out to him and see
Cool.
what he thinks. And then Linda, if you could confirm with the city whether or not we're allowed to go to outside farmers markets, that'd be great as well.
Jeff is pretty cool about stuff. He'll probably be pretty receptive if that is allowed.
Yeah, and I assume it would be allowed. I assume they would encourage us strongly to go to the city one, but I wouldn't suspect they'd have an outright ban on going elsewhere because we are a community-based organization. Okay,
Agreed.
so any further comments on working groups real fast? Okay, next step. Linda, do you think it would be best for me to delegate all the old business to working groups this month?
Yes.
Before
Because basically the old business, a lot of that is what Ben would have talked about, and he's not here. And I think that the answer to your question is yes.
Okay, so if there's no objection from the membership, we will go through old business at our working groups this month. We will not handle them at this meeting. Is there any objection to that due to time constraints?
No.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to commissioner announcements. Does anyone have any commissioner announcements this evening?
Oh, no, but I did want to mention that on the ECPC report, we skipped the ECPC report.
Oh, yes, you proceed, yes.
There'll be 2 cases going to the Plan Commission, Kmart and Aspen Heights, and I will send you the information on those via email. Okay.
Thank you, Linda. I have a combined commissioner announcement and ECPC report. The McDowell property that the Environmental Commission opposed due to them wanting 80% impervious surface when we wanted them to stick to the maximum 60%, as outlined in the UDO. It passed the city council, they approved it, but they approved it with the reasonable condition that they only have 70% impervious surface. So we got an extra 10% of green space included in that site plan. And I believe it was due largely in part, if not entirely, due to the advocacy of the EC in this matter. We made our voices heard. I attended every land use committee hearing. I was unable to attend the final city council meeting as I was in the hospital, but they read our memo and they decided at that point that the petitioner agreed with the EC that they were able to include more impervious or less impervious surface and more landscape. So chalk that up as a win for the EC in development. Thank you all for your work on the memo. And I was proud to represent you at those meetings, and I'm glad to say that they took us seriously. So thank you all for that.
That was great. Thank you for attending all those meetings.
Oh, of course, I'm a big nerd. It's my pleasure. Do we have any further commissioner announcements?
I have a short one.
Okay.
You've probably all read in the news about the proposed legislation at the state level for eliminating wetlands regulation from the state. And that I saw today that went to the to the governor for signature, but it was considerably modified so where it's not nearly as bad as it was before. It's limited to a couple of, I wouldn't exactly call them insignificant, but at least relatively minor categories. So probably imagine that the governor's going to sign that.
And I'm glad that got amended. It's still not a great piece of legislation environmentally by any means, but it's better than it was. I did write a letter as a member of the commission. I didn't write it officially as a member, but I said, I am a member of Bloomington's Environmental Commission. I'm concerned for X, Y, and Z about that piece of legislation. So I'm glad that the state legislature listened to the public outcry about it, because there was a lot of people, especially in Bloomington, I know, writing letters for that. So thank you for that update, Mike. Jadamia, did you have a report or not?
No, I just wanted to wish you the very best of luck with your MRSA, because that is a big deal, and I will be thinking of you.
Thank you. The antibiotics are doing their job. I'm about halfway through my regimen, and the swelling and discoloration's all gone away. So I look like a normal person. I just have to take more antibiotics than anyone else should ever have to take in their entire life.
That's right. But I wish you the very best.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Damia. Do we have any further commissioner announcements? I'm going to scroll through, make sure I didn't skip anybody. Oh, and our one member of the public left, so we won't reopen public comment this evening. With that, I will declare this meeting adjourned at 8:01 p.m., 1 minute late. Thank
All
you
right.
all for
Thank you.
attending tonight, and I'll talk to you later.
Bye, everybody.